Hey Woody, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. How you doing?
I think that the more and more things that happen in this world, I always look back to the topics we've already talked about on previous episodes and how they relate to what's going on right now. So Woody, what is happening in the world right now?
It's the COVID-19 pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's I don't really know what that means.
We're studying Woody from the future.
I don't even, it is a viral infection that has seemingly swept across the globe and is affecting several countries on a pretty high level in terms of quite a few people dying, and infection rates are high, and community transmission rates are also very high. And they, in turn, because of those numbers that were coming down like a couple weeks ago, basically just shut everything down. Shut down the world. Everybody works from home. If you don't work in a grocery store or like a gas station, or you're not a paramedic or a firefighter, you're at home.
Right.
And
that's why the Earth Bradette episode today is from distance. It's
on the phone. It's on the phone. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're practicing social distancing, and hopefully this is our first time doing this. So this is going to be, I think, for the next few episodes, this will be the style of podcasting we will be doing. And but one thing I wanted to mention, because I've been looking at how things are being framed right now, I thought it was really interesting how disease and war seems to be an unconscious choice to frame the pandemic that we're in.
I think that just strife really causes people the most pain.
Yeah.
It's either this thing or that thing, The difference between this one, I feel, is everyone is connected to this one, whether you wanted to or not. Like, what were the big news stories before, like, a month ago? A month ago would have been, February 2020. Everyone's just jumping around. Everyone's having a great time. Everyone's working. It's the new year.
2020, by the way.
2020 has that ring to it, right? Where you're you had mentioned that about 2020 and it being this piece of clarity, because 2020 vision is kind of a cliche representation of being able to see clearly. And then so the news stories are there was some struggle still happening in the province at that time. I mean, there was the fight for reconciliation was really cooking up with the blockades, and and that was a piece of struggle that I think everybody can see, but not a lot of people can understand. Right? Maybe they could understand it. Maybe they could understand it. Sure, yes, they know what's happening. Do they care? Who knows?
And that's a great topic. That's a great topic for today, is seeing and understanding. And if you can't see the threat, it's hard to understand it or to see it coming.
Yeah, and it just the COVID and the coronavirus, or the novel coronavirus, or whatever you want to call it, seems like there's this commonality between everybody that is a part of it. And everybody will understand what is a part of it. Doesn't matter what language you speak. And it kind of is this global struggle. So when you want to frame it into something like disease and war, it's there's always seemingly a war going on, and there's always seemingly a disease going on. But these two seem to be feeding on one another.
Right. And I think that's interesting to frame it as a struggle rather than a war, because the idea of war, that's the only positive aspect or frame within that meta reflection, let's call it, of disease being war, is that for once humans versus virus, the humans are on the same team, or on the same fighting on the But right now it's being framed as an invisible war, which is causing a lot of confusion and maybe used in a way that can cause harm. So have you heard about this invisible war that's been framed? It's mostly in the USA.
Like in terms of that you can't see a virus?
Yeah, but it's called the invisible threat, the invisible war. Fighting an invisible war is how the president has been trying to frame it. It's starting to catch on. Really
ongoing. I was just saying, I don't know if I could get on board with that, but maybe that's because I don't know much about it.
Well, the thing is, too, it's built in within the frame of disease. As people say, the virus attacks, and we need to defend ourselves, and we need a strategy to lower the risk of, transmission. But in the war metaphor, it would be more like invasion, right? And see, you're using terms. There's a bio-human and bio-plant frame of reference that's helpful. A virus attaches, and then a virus infects, and then a virus spreads. These are all words that do the same thing as attacks and, I guess advances and infiltrates. And there's the trench warfare idea where all your medical professionals are boots on the ground and on the front lines, Right. That's all fits the same war-like frame. And I feel if you don't have the tools to be able to make all the connections that lead back to, disease is war, that's what they're choosing, rather the one you mentioned earlier, which was disease is a struggle.
Yeah.
I feel like people will try and look for that invisible enemy, and it will start to divide us. And
nothing more dangerous than an invisible enemy.
Yeah.
Right. One that you don't know what it is or how to I don't know, like understand it if you can't see it.
Exactly. And that's where it now comes to a head, is disease is war mapping onto seeing as knowing. A person becomes a virus. You remember growing up in school, maybe kindergarten to maybe grade 5, you would play on the playground and someone would have the cooties, right? And you go, no, so-and-so has the cooties. And that person is now an embodiment of a disease. It's right?
You don't know
playfully.
What it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And what that does to that person is completely isolates them and
ostracizes them. And I feel like that frame of reference is now coming into this, and I feel like it needs to be called out. And what a great time to have a podcast. You know what I mean? To shed light or draw people to, and people like myself, to a source of where all this comes from. And it usually comes from these primary metaphors. Disease is war. Knowing is seeing. People are either pure or people are disgusting. I mean, I don't know. I kind of hope that that piece, that the depth of that doesn't happen. Like, I don't want to think that in 6 months from now, we're going to be ripping each other apart.
Right. But then what is the more pleasant frame? Right. What is the more pleasant?
Well, see, that's the thing is, like, at a time like this is probably an opportunity for me to take a lesson in, okay, I am an individual, and I am a citizen and a member of this place and time, and I play by the rules, and I, do what I do and what is instructed of me, essentially. But this is a time when I'm thinking the complete opposite of pretty much how I go about my everyday life, because in my previous everyday life, I would not be questioning where is my income going to continue coming from, where, like, as I go through my day-to-day activities, those things are already, it's like the subconscious and the conscious thought. Like, I'm not consciously thinking about that. So that frees my mind and allows me to go off into a space where I'm like, okay, well, now I can pontificate or conceptualize or you know what I mean? Like, otherwise, like, basically go to a dreamlike state of because I don't have to worry about my primary functions. But now it's opposite. Like, this is a time where I'm like, you know what? I should actually listen to the government, like, and I should be engaged with what they're telling me, because otherwise I'm like, oh, whatever, like, taxes, blue, 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 blah, bloop, Yeah. But now that switch has been made, I'm all of a sudden now more interested in, okay, well, how are the humans who are making those decisions going through their process? Like, that's something that I need to know now.
And now I want to say one word that really buttons all that up is foresight, right? Foresight in retrospect. And the idea of how do we gain foresight? Well, this is another, do you mind if I break this down a little bit? Something I'm thinking about. Okay, so you have your basic level of perception. Remember, it's the year 2020, and it's supposed to be the year of clarity, right? Yeah. And this is all you're talking about right now, is how to have perspective. And so you have your basic level perception. But when something like this happens, now more than ever, we need to enhance our basic level perception. So what are some of the options? We look at our situation through different lenses. We look at it from a bird's eye view. We look at it from a TV or a social media lens, or we look at it from, well, this is the best one, is through a group perspective, you and I talking, you know what I mean? And in fact, the most important one, because groups sometimes lead a common understanding based on the mass populace and how they're thinking, reflects how political leaders or people who are in positions of power make decisions, right? So you would hope, at least. And on top of that, all of this, I think we need to talk about goals. Woody, what is the goal? And we've already talked about this in the last conversation, but where is it when you can't see it? When you can't see it 3 feet in front of you, because now this thing has affected us to the point where we don't know where our next paychecks are coming from, or we're so scared to even be thinking about our families and what that will look like, or when things pick up again. All those problems.
Just going back to the goal thing, I think that right now the people are like, the goal is survival. But you've got whatever that hierarchy of needs is, like safety. You can't have anything above without the foundation below. And if, safety, security, shelter, food, and those are your primary concerns, like, not a lot of introspection can happen until those needs are met.
Basic. Yeah, and those are the fundamentals, right?
And like when we talk about goals, and like, I think the people's goal now is like
keeping afloat.
Yeah, staying afloat, right?
And that's exactly it. I'm going to bring it up again, that Life is Sailing, I believe, 3rd episode of the Earth to Des podcast, we talked about Life is Sailing and how much and how helpful that is right now for people to hear. Because the winds are not in our favor right now. We're in open water. We're all in the same boat. And for some of us, we're taking on water. And there's no hope of land on the horizon. And we're sitting there sending SOS to the sky, hoping that.
Well, I mean, I think that it's not even just one boat, buddy. I think it's like everybody's got their boat. We're like in a fucking armada out there.
It's like Waterworld, the movie Waterworld.
Yeah, and everyone's, and other people are taking on more water than others, but I just want to think and hope and believe and act that if those people are drowning, that we're able to pick them up.
Right. So
maybe it's all words too. I don't know, but it's hope, right? And it's good leadership. Yeah, I'm gonna keep on rolling with that.
Hope and leadership, and what the people need is a perspective. Once again, and we're doing our role right now, offering that valuable commodity, which is community, hope, joy, love, there needs, and then if anything, through hardship, right? And what better time to understand the perspective of foresight and retrospect? Right now, if this was a funeral, right, and we're mourning the loss of the loved one, there is a certain protocol that's in place. You can't just go out and have fun and pretend that you can. That's a choice. You can pretend that nothing's happening and that love. But you're almost running away from it, right? Mm-hmm. And if you were at the funeral and not showing your remorse and your gratitude for that person, that would be short-sighted, we would say, right?
Totally.
But because I know that I'm with people I love, I'm able to see 10 years in the future, looking back, going, at least I was with family. And that changes my reality today.
Totally.
And knowing that one day we'll look back at the times we were all out in open water together, picking each other up and maybe seeing something in that. But it's even the wrong time right now to even talk about that. I think it's really...
Because it's
in it.
False. Yeah.
And all these things. And I love how you said earlier about how it's a struggle we're all sharing,
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful frame, is this pandemic is a struggle. And one last thing, too, I want to talk about before we go and land the plane on the conversation would be back to the idea of, keep using examples, but stick with me, Woody. You with me?
I'm here. I'm with you, buddy.
All right, bro. All right. So you got a tree, and you have an ant, right? And the ant carries a disease inside the tree. But then now the tree has the disease in it that creates it's now exposed to the elements. Still there?
Well, it either adapts or lives with it.
Or it lives with it.
Either, you know what I mean? Like it's immune and adapts, or it finds a way to cope.
Yes. But the thing is, that's one thing that happens. But now that the ant is in there, a woodpecker comes along, right? And tries to eat the insectivores. Yeah. So now that the insectivore is there, along comes the bear. Something that was once a virus is now a bear.
Yeah.
And so how the beast can change, like you say that, it's like a whole new animal, right?
Yeah.
It really put things into perspective, that this is no little ant anymore, Is that helpful to you?
I mean, it's all there's just do whatever you can to live inside of the practical moment, because the future and the what ifs and the could ifs and the this and that is uncertain and could only be used for one thing, and that's to cause worry.
Right. So let's land the plane completely now, and I want to send out a message to the people listening.
Yeah.
Choose patience. Please choose patience. But at the same time, when you know it's the right time within that space, be persistent. Focus on the goodness and kindness in your community. Be stable for those who are vulnerable. Show signs of leadership and self-control. And remember the power of joy, peace, and love you can give to each other. it's the most valuable commodity in the world. And use this new perspective that we've been talking about today. And this is a great conversation, Woody. And I think I look forward to our next one.
Yeah, and thank you for saying what you would and help thinking about the people.
Yeah, man. Music to the people. Bon voyage.